Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the GROGPOD Roguelike podcast, or should I say GROGPOD? Because I'm a zombie, and this is my creative, improvised take that I didn't have written down in the Google Doc before hitting that record button. Yes, you are welcomed to yet another episode of a podcast about roguelike games. It does what it says on the tin. We talk about bigger, small ones. We try our best to rank them in the most definitive list that can't be argued against. I am your commander. That's it. Yes, I am the commander of the Haven of the podcast, Scott Berger, and with me are my podcast heroes that I've recruited from the tavern to defend this mighty realm.
We got to choose an order now that we have like extra another person joining us, or should you do as an introduction?
Yeah, I guess
not necessary.
We've recruited. We've used our gold for this production phase to recruit yet another new permanent member of the podcast. Previous guest Andrew, welcome back.
Hello, and it is good to be in this wonderful haven. I see that you have things well in hand. Only, a few walls on fire here and there. Yes, I'm the fourth hero that you've recruited from the inn. I'm the pedantic, dragon-blooded metalhead, Andrew Harshman. Those are my traits. I looked them up in the wiki. Those are all canon.
Those are the perks that we picked for you.
I'm glad to be on for what I think is going to be a pretty exciting delve into what I think is a pretty exciting game.
And I'm very glad to have you joining us here. I think we all win because, you've got a lot of insightful takes on a lot of this stuff. And I think just based on some of your comments in chat, I think I needed someone on my side. It's always me 1v2. And so hopefully you land on the right side of justice here and join me, I guess for the purpose of this game, the ranger that spams AoE to destroy everything in the same pattern every single turn. Not that I didn't like this game, but I'll go get into it. That's me.
Or you could join me, Colin, the guy with the sword who has no AoE attacks, but he is fun to play.
Indeed. This week we had to rifle through our listener request submissions that we had farmed over the past few weeks, which I'm amazed that people submitted stuff. So thank you, listeners who took the time to actually submit things that we should cover. But I was kind of surprised that there wasn't like a unanimous consensus of everyone saying, whoa, you definitely need to play this one. So we did a little bit of curation because the list that we had was relatively long, which a good thing. But we wound up pulling out 2 games out of our user submission hat for our first ever listener request week, which couldn't be any more different if we tried, being Brotato and The Last Spell. And I think we'll put Brotato up on the cutting board here first, but yeah, we'll talk about our Bullet Heaven YouTube streamer catnip game, Brotato, which was released in early access September 27th, 2022, and just 1.0'd full release this year. It's not even in my updated data set yet. That's how fresh it is. June 23rd, 2023 is the first release version of it. You can find your Brotatoes at your local grocery store, as well as on Steam, Switch, God help you, Android and iOS. You can. This is a solo dev effort by Thomas. And Thomas, I apologize. Look, we're just brutish Americans here. Our brows are very thick and very low, and we know that people based in Lyon, France, come from a much higher grade of humanity. But I'm going to butcher your last name here as best I can, Thomas. Okay, we'll try one more time. Thomas Gervrod. That sounds nice, right?
Sounds elegant.
Also known as Blobfish Games on the interwebs. Brotato rolls around the counter on our data set as the 25th most popular roguelike overall, if you can believe it, with 34,883 total reviews. Will, you've just put the Brotato in the microwave and you've hit that cook button, but you can only describe this game in one sentence before it's done.
I am the minimum viable potato that is stuck in a rectangle and shoots things coming at him repeatedly. That sounds about right. Yeah, that I go with that.
I like the MVP pivot with potato.
Should have been punching.
Oh yeah, right. Weapons of all sorts, I guess, with leveling up. It's your vampire survivor sort of thing.
Yeah, this is interesting because this is our first foray into the subgenre of a subgenre of roguey games, of vampire survivor like games. So this is one thing that's been interesting to follow recently is, what do we call these things if we need to call them something? A lot of people call them vampire survivor likes. Some people call them bullet heavens. Other people, one thing that I've seen that is kind of fun to think about is like one stick shooters, like instead of twin stick shooters.
I personally like that term.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Bullet heaven is not great. I think
not great.
Send that back as a term. I don't love it.
You don't. I see that. I was gonna say that's my
very like reactionary. It's like
now you're already falling on the wrong side of this. I can't believe it. We're off to the wrong start.
Oh, good grief.
I'll
make up for it when we cover the second game. Yeah, Brotato. I was, I think, when we were chatting, offline or online or behind the scenes, pretty rough initially right out of the gate. My first run, I was not having a great time, but subsequently I played it a little bit more. I didn't play it that much. I think I made it to wave 14, and I was starting to begin to understand why it is so popular. And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but it is the second most popular single stick bullet heaven game. Is that correct?
Yes. And shockingly, I think this actually might be so
like
second
Vampire Survivors.
Yeah, second most popular in terms of like review volume, if we use that metric. But in terms of like people who are playing it right now, how much more popular do you think this is with people playing it right now versus Vampire Survivors?
What?
Well, Vampire Survivors got some years on it, right?
Vampire's old, too old.
I mean, Vampire Survivors was released 1.0, I guess, in October of last year, 2022. So it's not even a year old. And Brotato, I guess, like 1.0 relatively recently, so it might have like that kind of knock-on effect. But the screenshot that I pulled, like comparing a bunch of these different Vampire Survivor-like games, including Halls of Torment, Brotato, 24-hour peak of players, 13,000. Vampire Survivors, 7,000.
And just so I know, I've been playing Halls of Torment lately. Well, how does that stack up? Do you have that?
Halls of Torment splits the different. Well, no, actually, I
don't even know what Halls of Torment is.
Buckle up.
I mean, it's another one of these. I got singles. I feel like I gotta say both of them every time now because there's a little bit of disagreement. The single stick bullet heaven games.
It is.
It's a stick heaven.
It's a stick heaven. Yeah.
It's a bullet stick.
There you go. Yeah, sure.
So Brotato 13,000, Vampire Survivor 7,000, Halls of Torment 5,000. Well, I guess you could round it up to 6,000, 5.8 thousand. But yeah, Halls of Torment is what if Vampire Survivors but Diablo 1 graphics?
Yeah.
That sounds actually, you know what? That sounds about right.
See, like you say, but like it has that kind of like janky wholesomeness to the sprite work that you see in like the Diablo 1 butcher and like all that kind of like dark like MS-DOS early 90s aesthetic. It's interesting, and like it's also interesting in that it defaults to like it's like by default a twin stick shooter / hack and slash bullet heaven ? But there's some options that you can select to just like, just do the auto aiming and auto attacking for me, please. And I think I kind of prefer it that way. But anyway,
all right, we can't talk about Halls of Torment.
Good aesthetic. Speaking of aesthetics, I find Brotato's aesthetic a little puzzling, personally. it kind of has a very Flash game-esque look to it,
Yeah.
which I guess there is a certain soft spot in my heart for that. But yeah, I don't know. I find the artwork to be a little puzzling. The other part of the aesthetic and sort of look and feel of the game, the sound is great, and the feedback I feel like is really great, and like it feels good to clear a screen and to take out enemies and everything. Yeah, I don't know. What do y'all think of the art direction?
I think for me, this is my only bad bullet point for this game, is that the aesthetic is like virtually non-existent. And I think that like this game, I think gets a little bit of defense with it being a solo dev effort and the game being $5. But at the same time, like basically all these other Vampire Survivor like games that I have on like this popularity screenshot here are also $5. So I don't know, like Vampire Survivors also $5. Bone Razor Minions less than that. 20 Minutes Till Dawn less, about the same. Halls of Torment $5. Like I think this game benefits a lot from being from that first mover effect of like Vampire Survivors, like really good. Brotato, like the first one to be kind of like directly inspired by that, maybe.
Interesting.
I mean,
I was
it's the case that like, so with Binding of Isaac, I mean, like that was a Flash game, right, to begin with, and so like we can't say that like because it has those graphics that it's bad. And in fact, you know, Luck Be a Landlord, my number one game, has the graphics of a potato of sorts here.
Yes, but it's Pixel Potato, which I like.
Pixel Potato is nice. I mean, it's different.
Yeah, Potato.
Now, when you say that it's a solo dev, like literally this dev did everything, including the art?
I mean, I believe it because I think that
well, that almost I didn't consider that. So, well, obviously, if it's a single dev, then the single dev had to do the artworwork. In which case, I don't know. That almost like ranks it up in my mind. Like, okay, all right, well, I can dig it. And I also I feel like
I did some spying on some of the other games that I've already not only did I butcher his name, then I forgot it 5 seconds later. The least I can do that Thomas has developed for us here. Like he's developed some other, ironically, potato themed games that also have like a very similar kind of art style to them. So I can 100% see like, oh, he's just rolling with that same aesthetic, which is fine. Sure. But I feel like there's a divorce between like aesthetic and theme here. And like the game has like an aesthetic kind of, but there's no theme. Does that make sense?
Oh, interesting point. Yeah,
like
I would
Enter the Gungeon
impressed.
had like guns and everything was gun based, whereas like this one is like, oh, you're a potato with guns and melee weapons, and like, shouldn't you like what would a potato should I don't know, have a ketchup and salt shake. I don't know, like how you make a weapon out of that stuff.
Is it a play on like Mr. Potato Head? Like you're attaching different things to your potato.
Ooh, that's good.
I didn't care that there wasn't like an aesthetic for the weapons and stuff. What I didn't like was that all of the enemies kind of look samey. They're all purple.
Sure.
And they're all kind of blobby. And so you're just like, it's just like a wave of purple goo-ish kind of thing coming at you. It's kind of hard to differentiate. It gets like at a certain point, you just kind of like defocus your eyes and just like run away from the swarm. And I was like, oh, there's how many different kinds of things that you don't. It's just they're very much the same. Like I'm looking at the wiki and then like some of these things are like, oh, they had like special things they did. It's like, well, I wouldn't have known. I mean, I didn't play it very much, but I literally couldn't have known because it was just like, oh, it died and it spawned 3 more. Like, well, they were immediately just like part of the swarm of
horde of monsters that have it out for potatoes. Yeah, well, once I started getting into more runs, I feel like I was getting a decent sense of like, okay, that's the charging guy. Okay, that's the guy with more health. Okay, that's the guy who shoots a projectile. And yeah, since we're now sort of talking about the gameplay, I feel like is my experience with the very super brief time with this game, that there's a little more of a focus on movement than something like Vampire Survivors, which I did appreciate from like a sort of twitchy bullet hell type perspective. Like I was enjoying kind of dipping and dodging around. But what I didn't like is the fact that, and this maybe changes as you go on further. I only got to wave 14. But what I did not like is that you're stuck in a square arena. And I was so looking forward to exploring a potato scape of some kind. There's none to be had. And that's something in Vampire Survivors that I really like, which is
and you can't
exploring the level. Dare I say it's not really exploration, but going around, traversing the level.
I feel like in some ways it's an opposite criticism, but I wish that you could have zoomed out further so you could have seen the whole thing. Because like kept being like, well, I'm gonna run up here, and then I'd like start running and be like, oh, there were a bunch of enemies that were just off the edge because I felt like the zoom distance wasn't far enough out. So like as part of a like, well, we gotta pretend that we're in a larger area, so better make sure that the zoom's quite zoomed in.
You guys just touched on like the two things that were like top of mind that were some of the worst parts about this. Like being like in the beginning, I said you're trapped in a rectangle because that just stood out to me as like this is so weird as someone who has played all these other Vampire Survivors like games. Like, yeah, there's like these really interesting like landscapes and you're exploring, and like sometimes there's like maybe there's like a a top and bottom border, or like there's a diagonal, and like or in some cases like with Vampire Survivors like almost like a maze like labyrinth that you're like exploring, and like that's interesting, and it's also zoomed out further so you can like plan your way through it a little better. And this just felt so like it feels like it takes the dimensionality of the game and really reduces it down into like what Colin said, which is just avoid the swarm, which I know that's kind of like the basis of these games, but it just felt so much more basic.
Yeah, there's two kind of interesting comparisons to this, both of which I'm almost certain no one else here has played, but super stay tunes that have that kind of fixed square like arena. And like I almost think that like Brotato is not a Vampire Survivor like, it's a Crimson Lands like. And Crimson Lands, like, again, yeah, the facial expression of bemusement is justified because this is a game that like it routinely goes on sale for like, I don't know, $1 like once every so often. But like I caught it on sale finally because otherwise it's like $15 and I'm like, I'll wait. And it is very much like that. It's a fixed square arena. All the enemies kind of look blobular and the same, but I feel like that one is more interesting just because like its aesthetic is like very much more Starship Troopery Doom style bugs. We got bugs and we gotta like kill them all. I'm from Buenos Aires kind of thing. Versus this, which like if there was like plans for the game to like lean more into like potato puns, like I'd be all over it. Like it doesn't feel like there's a kind of theme here to kind of draw me back in. And again, like we're criticizing a game made by one person that's $5. Like how I don't know how much like we can really...
I think we can criticize whatever we want here. I don't think the fact that it's one person like I'm just interested in fun games. Fundamentally, fun games is all. If it's one person, 100, I don't care.
Yeah, and I think this game is fun. Like, I think this game is fun to like play in short bursts when like I just like I'm done thinking for the day. Like, I don't want to think about anything else. I just want to like run a little egg-shaped potato man that can wield 6 guns at a time in an arena and like maybe drop landmines and have things explode for 5 minutes. Like,
yeah, I'll say I was pleasantly surprised. I basically didn't play this game because you guys made it sound bad. And so I played it for like an hour this afternoon before we started podcasting, and I had a good time playing it. I didn't like the aesthetic, but I did kind of have fun playing it.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, certainly I was having more fun as the more I played it, basically, which is a great sign. I mean, for any game. And I think with a little bit of time that I played it, it's I think I get why it is.
I played it from Scott's Steam library, and one of the questions was absolutely going to be, how much does this game cost? Because if it was more than $5, then it'd be, okay, the value per dollar goes down. But for $5, like, I don't know, play for an hour or two, you've got your money's worth.
Yeah. This would be a super solid game to, like, put on in, like, I don't know, you have, like, some people over, the brewskis are out, and you're just like passing the controller
Maybe
around
some
for, like, 20
potato
minutes.
vodka.
Ooh, like potato skins, like stuffed with flaming brass knuckles and
Yep. Oh, sure.
landmines.
We've kind of danced around the intense story behind this game.
Right. I was about to ask, is there an intro
No,
text or anything? Oh,
no.
okay.
But
That I missed, maybe? Nope.
so the rug pull here is that I found the Nintendo Switch eShop description,
Oh,
which
fun.
the game, none of which is evident from the game, but like,
here we go.
If there was more about this, I feel like it would be like, okay, like you have me hooked. So the Nintendo Switch eShop description reads as: a spaceship from Potato World crashes onto an alien planet. The sole survivor, Brotato, the only potato capable of handling 6 weapons at the same time. Waiting to be rescued by his mates, Brotato must survive in this hostile environment.
Oh,
Okay.
now what what intern at Nintendo wrote that? Like, oh shoot, we didn't get a blurb from
Like,
the
is that even
Wait,
true?
that's
Or did
fascinating.
someone like from Nintendo make that up because they're like, it's gotta have something?
Yeah,
Definitely
I don't know if
ChatGPT
it's-
generated right there.
Hey, that motivates me a bit more to play it. And I feel like if there was just a little bit of that in like the UI, like, oh, here's the rescue
Yeah.
ship and it's getting closer. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like I think that would add something to the.
I think this
for
game
me
does not.
personally.
I think this game needs any extra story would be annoying in my opinion because it's not going to be enough to be like a good story. I feel like zero flavor whatsoever would have been just like pure mechanics. Sure, that's basically what Vampire Survivor is.
Wrong.
Like, what story is there in Vampire Survivor? There's
Are you kidding?
flavor.
Yeah, there's the flavor is
Well,
I mean,
there's
like,
the
yeah,
vampire.
you
if
are
you're gonna spend- if you're gonna-
surviving in a vampire hellscape, and
If you're
like,
going to spend time on external things, spend time on the art flavor. Don't give it a story about Potato World. I don't care about Potato World. You're not going to invest me in your story. I
I'm
just want to
already-
beat up blue goo.
I'm
purple
feeling
people.
it. I want this potato world to happen now. Like, I just like
I
you know
think
what
you
what's
are
the
wrong.
economy like in the potato world? Like, what is the government like? Society? How do the potatoes?
So our next game here,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I honestly like. Do we want to move on to Last Spell? I feel like we pretty much covered all of there is to Potato.
yeah, we can come back to Brotato for when we talk about final rankings, I think. But yeah, our second game from listener request week, thankfully, is the Siege of Gondor simulator, The Last Spell, released 1.0 this year, March 9th, 2023, but released in early access June 3rd, 2021. You can find this on Steam, the Switch, and PS4 and PS5. This is a game developed by Ishtar Games, also based in France, in the Bordeaux region and the Lille region. It's the one that's right next to Roubaix. Everyone knows
From Lille region.
Roubaix is. They are well known for their Dead in ... series. They developed some games called Dead in Bermuda, Dead in Vinland, then The Last Spell, and they have a new game also out this year called Lakeburg Legacies, which seems interesting. This is published by the Arcade Crew, who have published such notable titles as Blazing Chrome, Kunai, Infernax, which looks interesting, and a kind of near and dear aesthetically to my heart, any kind of Sega Mega Drive Master System side-scrolling ninja / robot game, Vengeful Guardian Moonrider, which I think also has the same soundtrack artist as this game, which we'll get into in a minute. The Last Spell rolls in on our data set as the 91st most popular roguelike game with 8,387 reviews. Andrew, what's our one-sentence description of The Last Spell before the waves of Rob zombies spill over the Haven walls?
Check it out. You're going to be riding in your Dragula through waves of enemies while you're defending a city. It is a tactical turn-based turn-based tactical combat game with some RPG elements. It's definitely roguelite light as opposed to roguelike. And it is golly, I would have prepared something. Yeah,
No.
it's because it's less of a sentence thing that I want to describe it as more of a bullet pointed list. It's like, yo, it's tower defense, it's turn-based tactical game, it's sort of old school grid-based RPG combat, and it's got this really just like ripping like metal aesthetic to it that I am all about. It really speaks to me on like a power level, epic poem level.
Ripping those power chords.
It's a tower defense game where you're the towers.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, good. Yeah, I suppose you're the most powerful and interesting of the towers. Indeed. Yeah. What did I miss anything with my description?
I mean,
no, yeah, I think
I covered it. I think
that'll cover it. Yeah.
I mean, there's the narrative element to it that is kind of outside of like
the potato world. I forgot. Yeah,
it's not in potato world.
I mean, we don't know that.
That's true.
Is that where we want to start? I mean, the game does start with an intro cinematic.
Yeah.
Which
I think the
pretty...
intro cinematic to this game is like
very good,
otherworldly compared to, again, Brotato. It has heart, but the last spell I think has budget behind it, and boy do you see it with this kind of intro cinematic, this 4-minute long pixel art feast for the eyes that kind of gives you, I mean, I'll encourage people to go and watch the intro video just to kind of whet their appetite about how this game is set up. But I feel like the TLDR version of this intro is it is medieval Oppenheimer, and you're effectively trying to reduce or reverse the magic of the atom bomb and banish all magic from the world.
Yeah, no. It's a great intro cinematic, and the music fucking slaps.
It's like, yeah, and the sound design in general, very good.
Yeah.
So I thought, you said, oh, they've got budget behind this. I feel like, I don't know even if there was that much money spent in the introduction cinematic. Like, I feel like there's not a whole ton of animation, but like the way that they gave it life and movement was super impressive, and like the music, but also just like the sound effects and everything were like super intense, super great. I mean, and I'm not trying to knock the intro. There's definitely a lot of time and effort went into it, but like I feel like it was very efficiently done also, which I was impressed by. But yeah, as you say, this is definitely a post-apocalyptic game. Like the medieval kingdoms of the world all got a hold of this special, super powerful purple magic atom bomb magic and used it on each other, and the world is covered in this purple magic fallout mist, this nuclear fallout that has basically destroyed most of the world and has mutated all of the creatures throughout the realm into horrible mutated zombie-like beasts and monsters, and it is up to a select number of these little pockets of surviving strongholds that are trying to cast a banishment spell to end this, which is I think is an interesting concept. Like the ultimate goal of this game, this fantasy game, is to bring an end to the fantasy. The end goal is to stop magic, is to get rid of it, because we've gone too far.
Zombies.
Oh, sure, that too.
Counterspell. Yeah, like this game I think really starts very strong. You have your kind of forced tutorial sequence that you're guaranteed to lose, so that way like, oh, this is basically the life cycle of the game, where you learn all of these at first seemingly bamboozlingly huge amount of concepts, and you're overwhelmed by zombies. You have a little fort to secure, and you have some mages who are desperately trying to gather their magic energy to produce the last spell, and then you lose, as you do, or in my case, as you do numerous times, and then you are brought forth to meet these two mysterious gods, goddesses, the gods of meta progression greet you and offer you a purple kind of meta progression and a gold type of meta progression. And they introduce you to your goal of, okay, you're here, there's multiple timelines, and everything is wibbly wobbly in this world, and your goal is to go into these different havens and try to hold off the zombie hordes long enough to have the mages erect the last spell and dispel all of the magic. And yeah, how do we want to jump into this game? It feels like there's a lot going on here.
I think we can talk through like some of the mechanics first, and then kind of get into how we feel about it. Because I think that you're right. Like, you start the game, you saw the intro, you're super hyped on like, yeah, I gotta stop these zombies so I can save our mages while they cast break the seal or whatever. And there's like, I don't know how many in total that you need to do, but you've got these heroes essentially that you're assigned, and they have different classes, kind of typical RPG classes: the warrior, the ranger, the mage. I think those are the three that you start with. And basically the town's there in the middle, and you can see that, okay, zombies are going to come from these sides, go. And there's essentially three, I think, different phases in the game. One is like the building phase, or excuse me,
production.
It's like
town phase. Yeah,
2.5, really.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah. Like where you've got a city in ruins, and you can destroy things. There's all kinds of currencies, like villagers are currencies. You can take things down, build them up, all kinds of inns and things that produce all kinds of resources. So ultimately what you're doing is you're spending a lot of time trying to set up your town. Then you want to build some defenses around it. So that's another kind of big element, is like, okay, you've got a town. Now find some way of defending it with the things that you have. And then finally you get to the phase where you're like, okay, here's your characters, position them, and then hit go. And then that's when you kind of enter the next big phase. It kind of goes from this pause sort of 2.5 or 3 phase thing.
The daytime period.
Yeah. The daytime. Yeah, right. Then it goes into the nighttime where the zombies attack. And that's when it turns into that very tactical, turn-based sort of
time consuming.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, do we want to get to that already? I mean,
maybe not just yet.
Yeah, no, but like that's essentially the format, and you kind of do this back and forth over the course of like, I don't know, 7 or 9 different nights until finally the seal is broken, and all the while you're leveling up. It's RPG elements all around, and that's kind of like the gist of the mechanics here. Unless I'm forgetting something.
You're forgetting the very crucial part of this game where you will inevitably be interrupted by something very important every 5 minutes into a segment of playing this game, and you're like, oh my god, what was I doing before? Like, I feel like this game I have to like carve out a weekend to just like grind out
Sure.
one town. Like it feels so thinky and involved. And
I'll start with so I really liked this game, but it took a long time to get through each run. Like, I beat the second town, and that's kind of where I'm like, I've played enough of this game. And that run took me 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Wow! 12 nights in the village, and it took me 10 hours. And
I gotta check my screenshots.
Did you beat the second town?
I did last night, and the Steam library was locked, and I said, well, I was planning on buying this game anyway. I'll friggin' pay for it. I gotta finish the second level.
Yeah.
Which I successfully did. But anyway, I guess I'm not gonna bother clickety-clacking and look it up. I think my run took maybe 7 hours.
Yeah.
God.
So it's very time consuming.
I am a masochist, and I was playing this game primarily on the couch with a Steam Deck. And so I will give the developers credit. This game acts like you can play this on the Steam Deck, and like, pray for those poor souls playing the Switch in handheld mode. I mean, good lord. Like, but it took me, what was it? 12 hours was my save file log for the first town to fail on the first boss fight.
Oofda.
On the last of the harpies. It took me 12 hours to fail the first town. So I think, like, for me, I think that was like just me not playing it on the right interface. Like, it was noticeably much faster on the desktop with mouse clicking. But I will, like, all credit to the devs. Like, you like can scroll around with the control stick when they work. You can, like, go through your different character sheets and all of like the crazy number of like menus and submenus and gold and stone buying and StarCraft style menus of town building.
That's been gas.
Like you can manipulate your overlords to a fine degree on the Steam Deck. I don't know that I would recommend playing this game on the Steam Deck unless you have like, I think, what were you saying, like in the Discord, like a transcontinental flight? Like it would work great for that.
That would be awesome. I would love to play this game on a plane. I feel like would be a great way to spend the time. The more time I'm like cursing about my heroes getting killed, the less time I have to think about how I'm gonna get deep vein thrombosis and I'm too tall for plane flight, for plane travel. Anyway, but so for me, the spell that this game casts on me, the trick that it pulls, which I'm very impressed by, is that this game takes a long time to play, but even when I'm losing, even when I get to that final fight and I've spent 6 hours on the run and I die, still had fun the whole time. I'm enjoying it all the way through. Very rarely did I say, yo, I'm not feeling it. I'm not digging it. I've been really, yes, very much enjoying this game, even when I lose.
That's incredible for me. Like it definitely, like I would do a night or 2 nights and be like, okay, I gotta turn this off for a second because I need a break. And every time I loaded it up again, I felt like I was greeted with that screen of like, you just finished the round or with the night. And now I've got 10 different icons on the left asking me to make about 1,000 decisions. And it's just like right in a row, like, okay, I got to choose all of the gods of the purple and gold. I have to make all those decisions. I've got to make decisions about my characters. What am I going to level up? What abilities? What am I going to buy? How am I going to change the town? Just like, oh no, this is the biggest thing this game I think gets wrong is it has no attention to decision fatigue.
Yeah,
like the way you structure a game is you do some number of decisions and then feedback. Feedback is like the heart blood of these kind of games where it's like you do something, you get feedback.
It's a shopping cart full of blood.
I heard a heart blood, but anyway.
I probably should spit out this gum. Right, yeah.
But, right, yeah, you're making an excellent point. I hadn't considered that. Right,
that's what it is. Like you decisions though, back and forth.
Sure. Well, I think that's made up for to some extent by how much feedback there is everywhere else. Like nice, satisfying sound effects, nice, satisfying animations, and I feel like any action I take in this game, I'm getting that. I'm getting that response. I'm getting that feedback. I'm seeing it on screen, and I'm feeling it.
That's during the night. I agree for the night. The daytime, though, all those decisions in a row where you're selecting like, oh, I'm going to level this up. Like, what are you feeling when you like level something up or when you buy something? It's like, oh, well, that might come in handy later, but like, it's in your inventory.
Like the first 20 hours, I was dreading the town portions, and after that, I dread it less so, and I do genuinely enjoy the base building, the daytime segments.
I feel like this game.
What about that? Mostly. Like, wait. I want. You say you enjoyed the base building. Like, what about that was enjoyable?
Well, after I sort of got a handle on the mechanics and did a little bit of light reading about like various tactics and strategies. Well, after I read the game FAQs with the wonderful ASCII artwork, I had a better understanding of the game, and I was like excited to level up my characters and like, oh, I'm going for this particular type of build with this guy, this person, this gal, this individual. I'm gonna go after this particular type of equipment. It may sound silly, but just like hitting the mine more gold button and hearing the ching and the little digging thing, like, oh yeah, like that hits like that. I enjoy that. The story segments, the little story and dialogue segments with the goddesses, I found pretty intriguing. Like, ooh, I'm gonna get to find out a little bit more about these, and slowly there's more information revealed, and like they did a great job of making these two godly forces feel otherworldly and elders, because when they first appear, they're just a shadow. Like they're just this this vague outline, and it's like, oh, interesting. But then after a huge investment of time, admittedly, oh, you get to see this full-fledged big sprite of each character, and it feels like, wow, I felt like it did a great job of communicating that unknowable sort of concept of like meeting with this entity that's on a totally different level. So yeah, those sorts of things, which I don't know, maybe it's very possible that I'm just being hoodwinked by like good sound design and graphic work. And my brain is being lit up by just the stuff that's going on screen, and that there's not as much, I don't know, meat to it. Maybe there's not as much meat as I think there is. But I definitely agree to some extent with your point about that feedback. You make a lot of decisions, you make a ton of decisions, and then there's not any immediate or even like shortly thereafter payoff sometimes.
I feel like this game is like throwing you into Warcraft 3 multiplayer like right out of the gate, instead of like slowly introducing, like, the tutorial mode is good, but like start me off with just like two sides instead of three, and like then like your next haven is like maybe three sides, and I don't know if like the like later havens have like four or multiple like angles of attack, but like on my first 12-hour playthrough, sounds like a long time, but I think like if you were playing this on a PC, you could probably crack it in half that. But it felt like there was a lot of symbology. There were a lot of like these intricately tied in systems to each other that like requires like a lot of mental energy to keep track of. But even after I failed the first town, I'm like, okay, let's see how like this restart experience is. Hit the restart button. Okay, it's the same town. All the pits are in the same spot, so like no proc gen there. But now I knew what all the systems were. I'm like, okay, before I didn't have any idea what gold was and why that was useful. And now I know like what stone is and why that's useful. And I've like accumulated all these meta progression unlocks. Thank you, purple and gold goddesses, along the way. Where now I'm like, okay, stone walls everywhere. You ain't getting through this time. And I'm gonna put some of my barracks in such a way as to like Terran's supply depot block off like the walls around to like, sure. Okay, these are acting as
you ain't Zerg-rushing me.
Yeah, exactly. And all of the abilities on the heroes were totally different on the second playthrough. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this one before. What does this one do? Big electricity bolt, explosion of ASCII art goodness. Okay, that was pretty satisfying. So I think there's like those hooks to keep me there. But I think, Colin, you were cracking your knuckles when Andrew was mentioning the gold and purple goddesses.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I was thinking about it, and I think it truly is appropriate to say I couldn't care less about them, because if I hated them, I would care more. But I feel nothing about them. I clicked through it. My biggest thought about them is annoyance that I couldn't click through the dialogue faster, or there was no way to turn off the listen to their dialogue at all setting. I was supremely like, after the absolutely amazing intro cinematic, I completely checked out of the story, and I was like, I don't know, just not doing it for me. I don't really care. You're kind of spoon feeding it to me, and it's like, eh. And once I kind of like hit that, well, I've decided I don't want to care, or I don't care about it, I'm just like, you kind of are saying the same thing. It's like, welcome to the Oracular Commander. I'm like, faster, click faster. I've already seen this blurb. Go faster through this.
Yeah, it's a good point. They repeat it too, don't they?
They do. And you can't click it. It makes it like the text scroll out slightly before you can click it, and it wastes 3/4 of a second of my time, which is apparently an impossible amount of time for me to waste when I've been spending 10 hours on a run.
It feels a little minimal. But I don't know, the dialogue choices when you are given them, which are kind of,
are they
not
choices?
Super inspired. Not really choices. I guess you get to pick which. Yeah, that's a good point. They're not really choices. I feel like that could have been.
If they were choice, it'd be different. I felt like it was just like, oh well, I get to pick one of the.
Right, like, and then later, eventually, you'll get to it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wish that was beefed up a little bit.
Yeah,
certainly.
I feel like
I didn't really care about it though. Like, it's like, this isn't why I'm playing the game. I really liked the game despite it.
I feel like if you don't care about it, it's easy enough to ignore it without consequence and get through it in a relatively timely fashion. But sure, I guess it could be sped up even more.
No, I mean, that's what I say. Like, I couldn't care less. It was just like, Just click through, skip. Okay, next thing.
It could have just been another
You
menu,
weren't
just like
even
the inventory.
Your info wasn't, or your interest wasn't even piqued when slowly the goddesses begin to change. That wasn't engaging or interesting at all.
When they
I haven't
stripped
gotten
off
that far yet.
when they stripped off their
spoilers.
cloudy visage and they were like weirdly partly nude pixelated art and with tastefully covered clouds across their nipples, it was like
I thought that reveal was spectacular. Like, whoa, oh my gosh, I'm
I'll-
seeing the god for the first time. Whoa, my poor puny mortal mind is being blown.
I'll admit I did read the dialogue a couple times after they revealed themselves, and then I was like, nope, I'm still not.
Still over it. Okay, well, I mean, I certainly don't think it's.
But
I'm not
I mean,
gonna
I'm
die on this
glad.
hill. I don't think it's the best part of the game. That's for
I'm
sure.
glad that you got or that you got something out of it because
Well, thank you.
They definitely put work into it. It's just like
Sure. I think part of the reason that I am pretty engaged during those segments is that I love it when an RTS game or a tactics game makes you, the player, a character. Like StarCraft 1 does that. XCOM does that. XCOM, I think you're called the commander even. And that's something that StarCraft 2 did not do, which was big.
But you don't have any.
But
you don't have any decisions to make.
I don't know if that matters. I just like being part of the story. I'm just happy to be here, just like this podcast. I just showed up. I'm not sure. But with regards to the attractiveness of the goddesses, does anyone else think that the portraits of all the randomly generated heroes are like on average very attractive?
You know, I was trying. There's a very
I'm getting some weird looks. Like I felt like I was playing a dating sim. Like, oh yeah, I'd love to take Ashley the fearless out for a coffee or something.
I mean, of course they were.
After she bashes in the skull of the mutant lord.
I finally tuned them to be my harem of attractive fighter women.
Perfectly
Well,
diamond symmetrical faces. There's a YouTube series that I think people that they're still doing called Monster Factory, where these people
the McElroys.
Yeah. Well, I only follow them whenever a new video comes out, but like,
of course.
But yeah, they'll like try to contort the Dark Souls character creation or like Mass Effect thing into like these hideous like goons. And I was like, okay, how can I Monster Factory this game with the character portraits?
Oh boy.
And I was just like hitting the random button over and over and over, and I'm like, well, none of these people have like giant foreheads or like like very very Kenshi-ized body shapes of just horrible mutants. They all look like generally pleasing Hollywood actors with like different goofy looking medieval haircuts and skin tones. I did appreciate that there was like a character code that you can copy and paste, so you could be like, oh, like I feel like this is a game that you could probably accidentally spend like 5 hours just customizing what your characters look like, only to have them die from some like bullshit zombie attack. But if you copied and pasted that character code, you can send it to all of your friends and be like, yes, Odom Stouthammer can live on in Colin and Will and Andrew's game, even though that,
or you could just remake them again in the next.
Yeah, that's also true.
That is fun. There's some opportunity for some like head canoning where it's like, oh, I'm gonna take my hero, my OC, and like put them in every town and play through. I don't know if that's necessarily what they had in mind, but that's kind of a fun option. I thought like the hero generation and like the level of depth in the hero randomization was like pretty good, and the traits that are randomly assigned, it's not like super deep or like super mechanically involved, but like it helps like give each hero a little bit of info, like or a little bit of character. I
thought the traits were pretty good. I mean, they weren't like too crazy, or the perks. Between the traits and the perks, like it did a good job of like you customize your character over the course of the levels and whatnot. The part of it that I liked less was the loot swap decision mechanics. It was like, okay, I've got 6 different characters and 15 different pieces of equipment. Let's try and figure out what the optimal build is. It's like, I don't want this. I don't want to do this, but I can't not because my brain won't let me not optimize. I can't not.
Colin, do you think the Kickstarter success for the Last Spell board game is going to be more simplified, or is it going to be more of these like crazy Brass Birmingham style board game tracks upon tracks upon tracks?
I don't know. Scott, I'll have to talk to you about this offline. But I did play where is it? Twilight Inscription, which is Twilight Imperium, the roll and write board game over the weekend. And it was too much.
It was not streamlined enough from Twilight Imperium.
Would you say that was more or less cognitive load than this game?
Since I was the one who was teaching it to people, significantly more.
Sure.
Because I had to answer all of the questions from all of the people. But no, I felt like this game, I was talking with Will about this on Sunday, where if I would restart this game, I would choose not to unlock some of the weapons so that it would be forced to give me only a subset of these weapons, because it was like, I am overwhelmed with choice and I just want like you to tell me which one. I need like the Diablo style, like just give me a number of which one's the best. I eventually just started picking whichever one costs the most and be like, I'm just going to assume that this is probably the best one. But they also wouldn't show you if you hovered over it and it was like, pull, like you compare and contrast this new weapon versus the old weapon, it didn't auto show you all of the stats of the character. So I had to be like constantly switching back and forth, be like, which does this person have 100% reliability or 0%? Is this person the one that's got plus 1 billion to poison damage, or is that the other one who's the druid that's got the staff? But she's the one who does shadow damage or whatever. I didn't find that part to be interesting, but I'm pretty sure that like you make your characters much, much, much better if you do the work to optimize them. So I couldn't help myself.
So this is interesting because this generally is not my type of game. Like my top like favorite games of all time are just like shooters, just like straight up third person, first person shooters generally.
Wait, can you name just a few, just so I have a little bit more context?
Half-Life, Max Payne, Duke Nukem. I don't know. The Stalker series is probably in there somewhere. Okay. And yeah, I'm a big fan of like the original Fallout games. And there was this period of time where I bought like 3 or 4 of these turn-based tactical games, and thinking, oh yeah, I like these games. I like Fallout. I would play them. I just get so bored so quick, too slow, was not interested, couldn't be bothered to learn the systems, couldn't be bothered to fine tune my characters. But this game, I feel like has that a certain level of depth, but it's very accessible for me personally. And the fact that I'm willing to not over optimize maybe is a positive for me enjoying the game, leads to me enjoying it more because I don't get caught up in that analysis paralysis as much. Like I want to try to make something that is semi-meta, but I'm not hyper-focused on making it perfect. Yeah. And I'm focused just enough for it to be engaging, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
I feel like I liked, I mean, you have the two different, the day and the night phase. Like, I very much enjoyed the night phase. I enjoyed the like little tactical combat. I wish that it had been a little bit more focused. Like eventually they were coming from all 4 different direct north, south, east, west of your town. I felt like that spread your attention a lot, and I wanted to be able to like have all my people kind of nearer to each other and with more synergy. But I really did enjoy the little puzzle of the game a lot. Like, was it the best? Maybe not, but it definitely grabbed my attention, and I was like sitting at work being like, man, I just want to be home playing this game. I'm jonesing to play Last Spell right now. And I haven't had like a true like craving to play a game in a while. So
can I want to give my evaluation of the
Please.
nighttime here, because it seems like it might be a little bit different, because I really a lot of things to chess, and like kind of like and thinking about like how many branching like options are there, how you focus your efforts here. And so in this game in particular, I've been kind of looking at it through that lens of, okay, you just started the nighttime, there's dudes coming in from all four sides. Well, that to me felt like you just started the game of chess, but you don't know at all which pawn to move first. And so instead of like being like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to move e4. I mean, like, just going to start out with like, here are some openings that are good. I know this is my general, like this in this game is like, well, maybe I'll move h4, or maybe and you just kind of like, you don't really know what's best. And in fact, I'm not sure that there is really a best. It's like, you just kind of want to maximize damage. And so you just end up sitting there with like, okay, well, all the moves are pretty much the same. I'm going to like do a lot of AoE, and then I'm going to try and like get as much damage done as I can. And I'm going to retreat and be on the edge of where they can reach. And maybe there's like a little bit of synergy where like, hey, he goes in really deep and this other guy like gives him an extra move so that he can get back out. But like, to me, like, that was just like, it was just like that over and over and over again. Like, okay, I got the 3x2 grid that the archer can hit. Where is the 3x2 grid he's going to hit? And if not that, then like, it's just the sort of decisions that were being made. It didn't feel, it felt, maybe it felt like more like checkers, but like checkers without like interesting hopping and like other dynamics. It just felt like
checkers.
Yeah.
Like,
it just didn't capture me very well with the
I
actual.
don't
I feel
know
like you
if
just
you're
need
being-
to compare it to a different game than chess or checkers.
Or what's the Star Wars game that they play with the monsters on the checkerboard thing? The guy
the
like puts
claymation
them up.
ones. Yeah. I'm sure that has a name,
Yeah.
but it might have been turned into Legends. Who knows if it's canon anymore? What that name is? I don't know if you're fairly characterizing the depth of this game. Like, you are managing, like, the decisions of I want to maximize my damage are important, but you're also having to track. That was a big breakthrough for me. I didn't realize that like the monsters movement is reduced. That didn't occur to me like my first couple of runs, like as they get damaged. So like managing the amount of damage you're doing, managing your heroes' positions, managing the monsters' positions, and keeping track of each monster and seeing how far they can move. Tracking your defenses, hit points, monitoring the different sides of the battle, I think is a very important part to this game design. That you have like different battlefronts happening at different times is very important and engaging. And then also just sort of generally having to manage threats on the battlefield. Like, should I prioritize just outputting raw damage and doing as much raw number of hit points as damage as possible, or do I need to focus on like these specific types of like boss monsters and specific types? I think it's I think there's a little bit more going on under the hood than you are giving it credit for, Will.
And also,
I don't know if there
mana.
are infinite levels, but I think it's enough to not be overwhelming, but still be engaging.
Well, and like if you're just using the AoE magic missile spam spell, you will just run out of mana.
Well, that's like, the town management is all about. Like, you just make it so that like you all of your levels you just put into mana, and then your town you like buy the mana things.
Sure.
Like, I never ran into a mana issue.
So I mean,
you never ran into a mana issue.
Oh, yeah. So it seems like you have optimized yourself into a boring game.
I think that's my problem. Is that like in the actual town, I'm like, this kind of game always favors investments. Like, if you could just take a short, like if you can make it hard on yourself in the beginning and buy all the things that are going to produce extra like money, that will let you like. So I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do that, and so it made it so nobody ever died. There was never really a sense of challenge. There was like, and so I breezed to the first town. I'm like, man, that was just arduous, sort of like, maybe there's a difficulty thing or something, or maybe it gets harder later on. But like, it just felt like a chore to some extent.
Once you beat the first town, the first proper town, you're giving when you choose a level, you pick the apocalypse level. And so there's like normal difficulty, and the apocalypse level, like 1 or 2 or whatever it's called, is like 20% more damage or something like that. So I mean, there is like a
that's on me then
handicap that you can do to address your early point of like not knowing, like there not being like good chess openers, not knowing what the right opening move is. I think part of that is the game does tell you like how big of an attack is going to come from the four sides, like with the map. And then later in the game, and this, this doesn't totally address your fair criticism. But you do eventually unlock a building called the Seer, which I have not actually going back to how I play these sorts of games, I was talking about earlier, I have not bothered building this building because the building, so I don't know exactly what it does, but the description is that it gives you insight into the next attack.
Oh yeah,
and that would help inform the tactics you might take, and that might appeal to you, Will. But the reason I haven't built that building is because I feel like, nope, that's gonna drive me to madness if I know more information. Also, it's gonna drive me to making poor decisions. Sorry, what would you say, Colin?
You should build it, not because of that. I had that information, never used it. But it also lets you push back the fog, so you have like a longer time for the enemies coming in.
Okay. Well, that's handy.
Like that's actually very useful. It makes it easier.
That kind of bugged me because like in certain parts, and again, like I'm playing on like stupid noob easy mode, but like I would like clear out monsters from like the non-fog zone. And then like the end of the night would be there, and it's like, okay, well now you got to clear out all the remaining monsters that are left. But there's still like a big queue of monsters in the fog that, even though the night is fully ended, are still gonna pile in. You're like, I gotta like burn like another 10 minutes here, like cleaning up. Like I've already beaten the level. Like just like the zombies need a surrender vote option where I've clearly dominated them. They need to give up. I'm extending my hand over the table to shake them, then call this game off, and they're just like, no, me spawn more enemies, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, I can waste more turns like running my little dude like across the map to go and kill this one other zombie.
Oh, but yeah, sure.
That like actively bugged me.
There were definitely a couple of times where I'm like, oh, I need to get this one person from this side of the map to the other. It's like, well, that's going to be a while.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it'd be nice if there was like a little auto battler, like finish the fight that you've obviously won.
Yeah.
I'm learning that maybe I'm kind of bad at this game because it sounds like y'all are just the walk in the park.
You've beaten the first town boss. Like I haven't gotten like that. That was another thing that really bugged me.
I beat the second town boss.
Andrew, you are perhaps the best of us because you beat Will already beat the second town.
I think maybe it just means I might be the most enthusiastic about this game and that I've dumped the most time into it. But
you beat it in less time than I did.
Interesting. Good to know.
So,
good to know.
Yeah. I wish that it was
interesting.
I feel like if we have to make an analogy to chess, I would say that
you do.
It's most like
absolutely mandatory.
If you were playing chess on 4 separate boards, because that's what I felt like it ended up being a lot of times for me, is that I would like split my heroes, be like, well, this one's a 3-star attack on this side, so I'll put 2 heroes there, and this one's only a 1-star, so I'll put 1 here. And each of them were like barely related to each other. You're like, and I wanted more synergy between my people, but I couldn't afford it because you need to split them up so much amongst them.
You can make synergies between 2 people.
You can make synergies between 2 people.
You can make synergies between one person and defenses, even. Like there are synergies to be had.
And defenses, but yeah, I think I wanted it to be so when I earlier said that it's tower defense, but you're the tower, I wanted it to be more tower defense than it ended up being.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like I wanted you to be able to like channel the enemies slightly more, and I wanted it to be I felt like the wave came from all direction, and I wanted it to be a little more focused so that you could like plan out like, oh, all my 6 people, like this person goes here, then this person goes here, and then this is this, which is this stat, and then this blah blah blah, and then this blah blah. And you can like get a little bit of that with 2 or 3 people, but I wanted it to be more.
You remember those yes. StarCraft use map settings maps where like
I can see
it was tower defense, but you like you built the path with like supply depots and like missile turrets and stuff, and like
sunken D.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That I feel like
don't Google that. Sunken defense, because you got your sunken colonies and you got to defend the place. Anyway,
but yeah, like I fired up Bloon's Tower Defense 6 because I'm like, okay, I know Will is like hot for this game like crazy, and I know it's like a similar kind of tower defense idea, but it just it felt more, yeah, like I think the last spell has its own thing going for it, and I think that's okay. I just feel like it just got to the point a little quicker. It feels like it's kind of stretching out a little too long. And if there was a way, then like I thought like, well, maybe is this going on too long? And then I'm like, oh wait, no, but my production phases, I need to get my macro all up in a line, so that way for the final boss fight I can have all these things. I'm like, oh, there's not enough time. But then yeah, so I don't know if I just need to play this on the desktop more and avoid playing this on the Steam Deck at all costs.
Yeah. Which we keep talking about the length of time that this game takes to play. So I am a Warhammer 40,000 player, or hobbyist, I should say. Realistically, I think I've played less than like 20 matches because it takes a long time to play Warhammer 40,000. It takes about as many hours as it takes to play through a run of one of these of the last spell.
Half of that is just painting the minis.
That's true. Yeah, well, more of it in some cases. Like, I don't know, the average match, I don't know, it's like maybe 4-ish hours. So, and oftentimes when I'm playing Warhammer tabletop, or I'm playing a board game, so oftentimes I'm like, gosh, I feel like this would be streamlined and way better and way faster if it was a video game. And I feel like the last spell, I really enjoy. What I really like about the last spell is it feels like, oh, cool, I can have this epic grand battle defense of this town with a ton of stuff going on, a ton of monsters on the board, but like it's snappy, it's fast. And I think so like for that experience, it's fast, but also it's fast in my estimation compared to the average tactical combat game, or like RPG with grid-based, turn-based combat. Like, I appreciate that it takes a long time to play, but I feel like on the whole the game respects my time.
I bet you we played the same amount of the tactical part, and I just spent like 3 more hours in the city part.
Interesting.
So if you could get that part to be a little snappier, I'd be
a little quicker. Hey, come on. Yeah. Well, hey, so what a grand discussion we're having about gameplay and everything. But if I'm remembering correctly, this is a roguelike podcast.
Uh-oh.
And this is where I have something kind of negative to say about this game. I don't know if it's really much of a roguelike. It feels more like a tactical combat, turn-based combat tower defense game with really long spaced out save points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's what do we think about that? And in fact, I would further say that I don't know if it has many roguelike elements to begin with. / I feel like the game would, maybe through DLC or something, which I believe they're working on, could benefit from more roguelike randomization and emergent gameplay elements.
Yes, absolutely. I think that when Will was talking about how, or Will or Scott said, oh, restarted the next town, it was the same town. It's like, it should be a different town. It should have, I mean, not that different, but the walls should be in different spots. There should be like a random sunken boat here now where there wasn't one before, or real big tree.
No, it's got to be meaningful. I mean, like binding it, like it just because we just mentioned it, like Binding of Isaac, you start with like a different like core item, and the thing you find right away is like there has to be like a substantial, meaningful difference. I think when you start, like maybe not like right away, but like very quickly starting to build synergies towards something.
It's 100% on our to-do list in the future, but Into the Breach shares a lot of similar designs here. Grid-based, turn-based, lots of tactical elements, but it's much more bite-sized. A lot of the levels in that game are also similarly not procedurally generated, but they are like the randomness part is like, how are those bespoke chunks, like Binding of Isaac, like pre-built rooms, how are those glommed onto each other? And yeah, I feel like also for listeners, stay tuned when we get to our 2.5 hour GROGPOD cage match of like our definitions of what a roguelike is. For stay tuned for that. But if we go by like grid-based, turn-based, permadeath RPGs as like various factors involved, it ticks all those boxes. The one that it just doesn't have is procedural generation of map terrain, which I think is like, it's an important one, but I don't know that that's like the be all end all of it being in the genre or not. I do agree that this is like Brotato very much is that kind of theme in a very different package. This game, I feel like less so, but I think that's okay because it helps to evolve the genre in a weird way that the more weirdness, the better, I think.
I don't know. I forgot this was a roguelike podcast. I thought we just reviewed games. Thanks for the reminder there.
Rogue elements.
Yeah.
I feel like this was a very roguelike game at all. And I feel like we probably shouldn't play Into the Breach for this podcast. I think that's just fundamentally
Wrong.
I like the
Wrong.
game. I just think it's fundamentally not a roguelike game. In the same way, we probably shouldn't play XCOM. Not a roguelike.
Actually, I feel like if you... well, yeah.
See,
anyway,
the horde,
we've already
cage is slowly
there is an
dropping.
Iron Man mode. I feel like XCOM on Iron Man mode is arguably a roguelike.
We've already played these games. All of us have
As is
played these. We gotta do new games, I think, or like mostly new games.
Just play Minecraft only. Yes.
Just Slay the Spire. Okay, fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
What more games do you need?
Right.
Let's
of course.
let's move into rankings. How about
Yeah.
So for each podcast, we try to rank these games against our horde that we've collected thus far. I guess maybe I'll kick off to start. So our listeners forced us to review at gunpoint Brotato and the Last Spell. Brotato, I think it's just fun to say. This is very much an all devs go to heaven moment, where solo dev, the game's $5. It's perfectly fun to play like in a borderline vegetative state on the couch when you have like trashy reality TV going. It is a slam dunk for that. I don't know that it really needs to push the envelope much further than that. It would be nice if it did, but I don't know that that's a requisite for the game to be fun how it is. It is very much a watch YouTube streamers play it and watch them freak out about it much more than I think playing it for myself.
I don't get that that's just so weird. When you told me that these YouTube streamers doing this, I don't
it
get
is.
it.
It is all over like the YouTube roguelike streaming community where I think part of it is that like the little Brotato characters have like the reactionary faces going by default, so any YouTube thumbnail incorporating them has that kind of
wow. That's how you optimize a game these days.
Yeah,
incredible.
It's like I think
there's
accidental.
A lot to react
insidious.
To, right? Like if you're a streamer, it's like, oh, I just got a new item. Let me, rap about that for a bit. And then, there's a new one. Yeah, sure.
It's
also,
very
that
much
is something that the aesthetic does do pretty well. It's like customizing your character. Anyway,
so for me, Brotato's gonna go just behind Shattered Pixel Dungeon and just in front of Hand of Fate. I think this is the line of this is pretty good. I think you would have fun if you had never played these games before. I think I just have a pretty stacked upfront list up at the top. And I think that's where the Last Spell is going to go. I think for me, it feels a little grindy a lot of the time. But I have to put it ahead of Darkest Dungeon 2 because of the maximum acceptable jank factor. And I'm going to put it just behind Hand of Fate 2. So I'm going to split the sequels there. As my new number 9 game on my list. I think I was working out to the soundtrack earlier today, and it is just phenomenal. The soundtrack, the art design, I think there's a lot of complicated elements going on, and I think it takes a lot of skill to make sure that those don't completely bamboozle the player. And I think that I've crossed that threshold. Okay, these systems make sense. I don't know how much more I'm gonna play of it. But they do have some DLCs in the hopper that I'd be curious to check out in the future. So for me, Brotato landing in at number 20 and Last Spell at number 9 on my list.
How do we pick? I don't know. There's
you started speaking, so you're
usually we give each other a look or something, but now it's just I got to look 2 directions, 3 directions.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
I can't just be
whoever that one is that I'm pointing to in the Zoom.
Yeah, we're all in different windows.
I see. Will, you're pointing at Will, so we'll go.
There's now 4 battlefronts to manage.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm not so nice. I don't think that all devs go to heaven, and so I'm gonna be brutally honest here, as I always am with this stuff. Brotato. If only we knew what was happening in Potatoville. On the potato land, I might have been able to give this a better ranking, but on my 1 to 10 scale, this is getting a 4.5, which I have a 6 as my minimum for recommend. So it's going to be in my not recommend zone. And I think if you're interested in doing a vampire survivors like game, first of all, you should play that one if you haven't already. And then I think that, like, I mean, I'm liking Halls of Torment. I got 20 hours into this game so far, and I'm still like
Wow.
having a good time. So like, play some like better ones first, and then like this game is just, it just really was not doing it for me. And so yeah, where does that put it? That puts it. You mentioned Shattered Pixel Dungeon. I put this right on the level with Shattered Pixel Dungeon and Darkest Dungeon 2 at 4.5. Yeah, not such a great one in my book. The Last Spell, better. It makes it up to the minimum of recommends, which is to say 6 out of 10. I think I summed it up best. I think it's just way too much decision fatigue, just like making 1,000 decisions in a row. I think there's a lot of better sort of tactical based games out there. I love the narrative of this, and I think it had an interesting idea, but I think to Colin's point, if they just reduced the complexity of like the number of sides, made it more of a tower defense and maybe less of an RPG, or just pulled some things out, like the goddesses, the meta progress, like just make it a little bit more simple in some ways, but then like focus on what you're doing well. I think that would have been a great way of approaching it. So a 6 on that one. So in terms of actual rankings for me, so we played, like, let's say we have 30 games here. Where's my will rank? So The Last Spell is my 14th out of 30, and Brotato comes in at 19. So that's it for me. I don't know who.
Colin, you should go next, and we'll have our new intern be the hammer for the episode.
Yeah. Brotato, I feel like I have not played enough of it to truly feel confident in my ranking, so I'll give it a pretty wide plus or minus for my rankings. I have it ranked at 16 out of the 30. I enjoyed the hour that I played of it. I do not care at all for the theme. I would be perfectly fine if it was zero, or the aesthetics, just raw numbers on screen. It would be indifferent to me, or it would be indistinguishable to me. But like, I had like some satisfying running around, shooting whatever, couch potato mode game. I think it would be, it's a pretty fun game. I could see myself like popping this open when I'm just like, I don't feel like learning a game right now, and I have nothing else to play. Like, I would not pop open Last Spell because I'm just bored, and I'm just like, I don't want to
5 minutes.
I'll play some Last Spell. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But overall, I think it was like, it has met my criteria for I would recommend someone go play it. Also, it's great value. The game per dollar is it gives it a little bit of a boost. Last Spell is my number 4 game now. I liked it a lot. I think there's at least some bias in there of like, it was so close to being an amazingly good game, in my opinion. There was a lot of things that ground it down. The grind of the game slowed it down a lot for me. And I felt like it was a little bit disconnected in terms of the nighttime gameplay and the daytime gameplay. I feel like it was just not as interesting to me. But boy, I was jonesing to play it, and I felt like I put in 30 hours, and I don't put that many hours in. Like, we only have 2 weeks to play these games. I normally don't like find the time in my schedule to fit almost a full week of work in the 2 weeks between when we do these podcasts. So I feel like that has to say something for the game. Like, I wanted to play it. The music is exquisite. I think it might be the best soundtrack of the games that we've played. At least the intro song was like really good. I liked the pixel aesthetics. I thought it did a pretty good job. I think it was very close to being like, I now, having been inspired by Will, I put it at an 8 out of 10, because I finally am like, fine, now that we're adding Andrew too, I feel like we might have to put like numerical out of 10 rankings, so we can like,
yes,
for a while we like recalibrate our scale. But 8 out of 10, like, pretty solid game. Would recommend people go try it out. Andrew, bring us home.
All right, so Brotato, unfortunately goes to the bottom of my rank. It's in last place, but I played it and I was enjoying it, and I think it's pretty satisfying to play. And while I don't quite understand the aesthetic, it is like, quirky and fun and whimsical, and I think I get why it's so popular. I mostly understand why it's so popular. I have some sense.
Yeah,
Some inkling.
someone's, yeah.
I guess. I just keep downgrading it. And then the last spell, perhaps it could be that I've just been yearning for this deep, satisfying, tactical, turn-based experience for years and years and years. Like maybe I've been yearning for it since Fallout 2. And now finally that I've like found it in a package where the biggest issue I usually have with these types of games is that I'm not engaged. I get bored. But I feel like the last pardon me, the last spell, I keep wanting to
how many potatoes have you been eating?
I keep wanting to call it the final spell, and every time I say the name, I'm like, is that the right? No, okay, all right. And then I'm like, all right, I didn't say the last wish because that's a Witcher story. So anyway, I feel like that's the game, even though it takes a very long time to play. Logistically, it's difficult to fit into your schedule. It is always engaging and very satisfying. And I'm very excited to see where the DLC goes. Even though we have a shared library of games, I went ahead and bought this game. I was planning on buying it, and I'm very impressed, and I'm enjoying it. And again, it's very metal. So it goes with 1 and 2. I'm throwing up the horns. That's right. Number 2 in my stack ranking. Right below Enter the Gungeon, which is basically perfect.
Excellent. Well, that's going to put the last spell at our new number 6 overall, and Brotato at number 23 overall. Anyway, moving on. If you want to email into the show, we did get an email. I think we're running a little long here, but it's a good topic that I can sprinkle in for future stuff, especially when we talk about randomness, which will come up every so often. But if you want to email into the show, you can write into grogpodzone@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on Mastodon, as the X ship is quickly sinking, you can find us on grogpod@gamedev.place, and our website where we have all of our rankings and things to subscribe to and other dealy-hoos. You can find that at grogpod.zone. Our next episode, we pitched over to our new host, Andrew, to pick. What inspired you to pick our episode for this upcoming week?
Well, I got to tell you, because basically I wanted to have us play the game Strafe, but then I'm like, nope, there's too much cool, good stuff to talk about in FPS design, but we got to save that. So I'm like, but I still want to do an FPS of some sort, something that is at least from a first-person perspective. We'll be playing the first-person Lovecraftian horror. Prepare to get sanity blasted by Eldritch.
Yeah, this one.
Oh, I played that one, I think. Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, because we had this on the schedule ages and ages ago, before one of my numerous retinkerings of the show format. And yeah, this was I think like on our slate to play before we were like, you know what, maybe we should change it up a bit. But like this one actually did look very interesting at the time. So yeah, I think I'm super excited to play this. Yeah.
It's definitely got like it's good, a mix of aesthetics that we haven't thrown in a good 90s feeling game yet, really. So I'm ready for it.
Here.
Well, to play us
thanks for having me here, and thanks for letting me pick the next game. What a deal. I wasn't prepared, but I turned in my homework right on time.
Well, we're gonna throw up the devil horns to play us out from this episode with the nice, relaxing metal tunes of I'm just being informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door and they're coming in.